Mr. Howard, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Amidits?
Here.
Mrs. Buckley?
Here.
Mr. Christensen?
Here.
Mrs. Cook?
Here.
Mrs. Dobus?
Here.
Mr. Means?
Present.
Mrs. Rule?
Here.
Mr. Schubel?
Present.
Mr. Spacuzza?
Present.
All 9 members present this evening.
Thank you, sir. On October 29th, James Robert Bob Means, the father of school director Jim Means, passed away at the age of 89. Mr. Means was a lifetime educator, beginning his career as a shop teacher and finishing it as an elementary school principal in the Brentwood School District. He was also a World War II veteran, having served as a radio operator and submarine chaser in the Pacific. In honor of his service to our country and in recognition of last Wednesday being Veterans Day, the board has purchased a copy of the World War II Visual Encyclopedia for donation to the Neil Armstrong Middle School Library in memory of Mr. Means. We know that some of our Neil Armstrong students spend time discussing the greatest generation and bringing in some memorabilia that their families have saved from World War II to share with their classmates. We thought this book would encourage them to learn more about World War II, and there are a few pages devoted to submarines beginning around page 164. Jim, it is the board's honor and pleasure to remember your father this way. Please join me at the podium as we present this book in his honor.
I'd like to thank the board for this. Dad spent his whole life teaching kids. It was 17 years in the teaching shop and then 18 years in the grade school. We loved the kids, and I can't think of anything more appropriate than to put a book into the school for the kids. So thanks again.
Tonight marks the final school board meeting for Director Chuck Schubel, and this board would be remiss not to take a moment to acknowledge his many contributions and thank him for his service. Chuck, when this board said farewell to you in November 2011, you might recall that I told you we hoped you would continue to stay active in school district and community affairs, and we also hoped that we would see you as a member of our audience at our meetings. We were extremely pleased that you took our advice and continued to stay active, and we were thrilled when you came back to fill the remaining 2 years of a vacancy we had on the board. Because of your previous experience with us, your transition to the current issues facing the district was a rather easy one, and it was great working with you again to keep the Bethel Park School District among the best in the county and the state. It's hard to believe that 2 years of your term have passed by so quickly. So it's only appropriate at this time to again stop and say thank you for all of your contributions these past 2 years. As you have in the past, you have provided this board with solid, thoughtful opinions and guidance, as well as commitment and dependability, and we are grateful that you were willing to come back and serve when you were needed. I'll repeat what I told you in 2011. We hope you will continue on the path of public service, and you are always welcome back at our meetings. We hope to see your smiling face in the audience, and occasionally we might let you talk at the microphone again, so please don't be a stranger. When you retired from board service in 2011, the board presented you with an engraved plate from Wendell August Forge. You probably don't need another one, so at this time I would ask my fellow board members, administrators, and audience members to join me in a round of applause to thank Chuck for his commitment to Bethel Park. You're welcome to say something at the mic. I won't cut you off this time.
Yeah, just real quickly. Just it's been a heck of a ride. This will be my 10th year with a brief sabbatical along the way, but it's been a great ride, and I want to thank the community for allowing me to serve you, and my teammates here on the board. I think we had a lot of discussions and a lot of tough topics we had to address, and I think most of the time we got it right. And not all the time, but most of the time we got it right, and we managed to have a few laughs along the way too. So, but thank you very much, and thank you.
Thank you. And now we have the High School STEAM Initiative Innovative Studios presentation.
Yeah, the Innovative Studios, and I'm going to introduce Mr. Charles Youngs. He's the facilitator for the English department, and also in the audience supporting roles is Kent Wallish from the art department, Bill Wells from the technology department, and Lee Cristofano from the science department.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Rourke, for that warm introduction, and good evening, Board, Madam President, and Superintendent, and all the directors, and all hearers. Thank you for having us back. Last month, Dr. Ginsanti introduced the Board to the idea of STEAM studios at the high school, and in the interim, you have brought to us good questions, and as a teacher, I appreciate good questions because good questions bring about good thinking, and good thinking just helps in the planning and the preparation to move forward. Last Monday, the White House had a summit, and there were Pittsburghers there, and the new initiative is to promote the whole school transformation of high school experience in order to promote or to provide students with challenging and relevant academic and career-related learning experiences that prepare them to the transition to post-secondary education and careers. This program is particularly interested in STEAM education, and so our conversation is right in line where the nation and the region and our community are focused. I'd like to remind everyone about STEAM. It is an acronym for science, technology, education, or engineering, arts, and math. And as the slide says, it is a way to teach how all things relate to each other in school and in life. It makes more sense to all types of learners because it is based on the natural ways that people learn and are interested in things. It engages students in experiences across disciplines with partnerships in business and community and beyond. And you can see the words I've highlighted there in colors. Those are some of the key concepts and reasons, the pedagogical reasons, the educational reasons why we would find that a worthy enterprise. It can be called STEM. We like to put in the A for the arts. But really, at the high school, we see all disciplines, all comers. We welcome physical education, special education, marketing, foods, any and all comers who want to work in an interdisciplinary partnership. It really is an exciting way for us to imagine our teachers at the high school working together. So much so that I think it will profoundly influence our program at the high school, as Dr. Ginsanti indicated last month. So much so that I think in years hence, people will look back at the program. They will see the program in place, maybe in 2020, 2025, after it's rolling, as we might envision it, and they will look back and they will wonder, how did all of this come into being? And some of us will remember, maybe not everybody will know the names, but or the faces, but we'll remember that there was a superintendent, Mrs. Rose, who urged a grant opportunity with Mr. Ryer and gave us a nudge at the high school. And there was a principal, Dr. Ginsanti, who worked with the teachers and formed a committee. And that it is with the faculty and with the board of directors coming together and having this conversation that we've had for more than a year, but particularly getting really focused in the last 2 months. We've been working at the high school level for 7 months since the grant opportunity came available, and the STEAM facilitators meeting regularly when we got back to school, weekly, to really hone this plan, and your questions really helped in that process. There are two things that we're speaking of here, and in terms of STEAM at the high school. We're speaking particularly of the STEAM studios tonight because of the grant opportunity that was accepted in June. But before that, there was a 9th grade interdisciplinary committee, a curriculum committee formed that was running through last year. And the STEAM studio project is one that is come together. And so with that, and tonight my focus is on that, the 9th grade STEAM experience, that curriculum committee, I'm tipping their hand a little bit, they propose to make a recommendation to the board next month. But you have in the documentation, and I have to speak to that a little bit, because it is part of the sustainability. It dovetails with what we're talking about with the grant. This was a $20,000 grant accepted from the AIU's Center for Creativity, funded by the Grable and Benedum Foundations to create innovative STEAM education. That was their call in the grant. And so we met for several weeks in advance of that deadline to discuss how could we be innovative, and how does innovation fit with our curriculum? What could we do that would appeal to all teachers in all disciplines, and bring those disciplines working together? And we realize that there's innovation in every discipline, and that this might be the beginning for a scalable concept that I'll talk about in a moment. Our vision simply is to have our students become digital citizens. Computers and technology are integral to our society today. Be connected, curious, connected thinkers, which is important for a global economy. Seeing patterns, being able to notice influences and make influences of their own, and ultimately to be designers and makers. President Cook mentioned the greatest generation. That was a generation in the 20th century that was a producer generation, a maker generation. America was making things. In the 50, 60, 70 years hence, we have become a consumerist society. And STEAM really suggests a shift for the 21st century of bringing production back into the thinking of our young people so that they become the next greatest generation. So with designers and makers, I'm speaking of invention, innovation, and production. Our mission then with the Innovation Studios is that we propose to guide students in learning experiences of academic creativity, critical inquiry, problem solving, with transdisciplinary design thinking that explores learning and ends in meaningful making them into those producers. As I said, the grant theme was that of innovation, defined as new ideas engineered to create value. All disciplines have advanced our world through innovation, and our students' futures depend on the present and future innovation. We would study past and present innovations. We would study design thinking, exploratory making, and performance to lead students to creating innovations in multidisciplinary, project-based inquiry learning, hands-on doing and making. Many of your questions touched on these, and so the discussion I'm focusing on tonight in your document are on these topics: the use of the studios, the plan for 3 unique studios. I've touched on the vision already. The involvement of all students. I've mentioned special ed. We're talking about our life skills as well as our gifted students in that spectrum. And I'm going to give you some curricular examples today and our expected outcomes and why STEAM. I mentioned a scalable concept. If we're going to begin this year, we already have teachers scheduled, we already have students scheduled, we have a curriculum, we are running school. And so how are we going to incorporate innovation as prescribed by the grant we accepted into this? So in the 2015-16 year, where we're imagining a range of experiences, many of which we've had piloted here and there. We have had work in these areas before, but to have a space where these are actually able to be done to their fullest. For instance, right now when you have two classes that want to meet together, if you want to have a marketing class and an art class, where do they meet? Where are the rooms big enough, and that sort of thing? Where are the supplies? How does all that function? If you have a guest speaker and you need to schedule, that speaker can only come one period. How do we arrange for that sort of thing in a focused and proper space? So by scalable, I mean it might be one or several class periods. It might be one or several units throughout a curricula. It might be one teacher having an idea that takes a special space, or it might be two teachers coming together, as I just explained, or some larger faculty team. There's also the structured concept, which is the sustainable concept for the future, and you'll receive more information on that with the proposal, a recommendation from the curricular committee. But Mr. Cristofano, who is the chair of that committee, has, as I said, tipped his hand. And we're thinking of a 9th grade STEAM experience. It would be scheduled opposite PE, much in the manner that 10th grade is for health. It would be a semester-long required course for all freshmen, and it would include STEAM-related interdisciplinary concepts, topics, and projects to show them the gamut, the range of interdisciplinary focuses. And it would be taught by teachers from various disciplines. You asked for a schedule and what this might look like. And again, this is very preliminary, but we're trying to imagine if we are planning to have all freshmen go through a program in half-year courses, in a 9-period day. Those are marked in yellow. And we're also thinking of how are we going to use these 3 different spaces? And why would we use 3 different spaces for this? Floor 4, as you remember, is sort of research and design and ideation space. It's also the research. It is our current library and would maintain that function as well. Floor 3 is adjacent to our science lab, and so that is kind of our fabrication or hacking lab, as they call it, a tech lab. Light tech, not industrial tech, but leading towards that kind of thinking. Floor 2 is our communications and media, video conferencing, and other lighter projects that would be coming up from the first floor. And tech, and then of course our first floor is our present innovation hall of tech labs. And so these are some of the projects that we'll be talking about as well this evening. The neon glass project, for instance, the 3D problem solving, the Honduras outreach project using the second floor for the video conferencing to connect with Honduras school. As well as in light blue, I don't know how much it does show up as light blue. Over here it doesn't. Over here it's clear to me in the light blue. Would be those scalable classes, those other classes weaving in as teachers would find connections in their own curriculum. And so those would be outside of the STEAM experience, but would be utilizing the rooms as well. And as you can see, we also have the open library, meaning traditional library usage. So to give you an idea of some of our focus projects that we've worked on, we had many different projects on the table over the weeks and months, but we've fine-tuned it down to a few to give the board tonight for a clearer view of what we're thinking. The English novelist Buller Lytton said, "Art and science have their meeting point in method." And this is my introduction to Mr. Cristofano, our science facilitator.
Thank you, Mr. Youngs. Good evening to everyone. As a physics teacher, and at this late hour, I hope you indulge me in a small physics lecture to begin talking about just an idea, an interdisciplinary idea that we had to make some of this learning a little bit more hands-on, a little bit more real to the students. If you're an electron, one of the interesting things that we discovered a while back, and this is taught in our chemistry class, is that electrons are able to absorb a bit of energy. And when they do, we say that these electrons are promoted or excited because they have this little bit of extra energy, kind of like giving my 5-year-old a little bit of sugar. Kind of gets them all wound up. And just like kids that are all wound up, they don't stay that way for long, and of course they would like to go back to where they came from. In other words, the energy that they absorbed, they would like to give back. And that's a lesson that we teach in chemistry, and one of the things that we were kind of throwing around an idea of how could we possibly make that exciting. There's a great application to this, and it's actually found in everyday fluorescent tubes that are lighting this room, and more excitingly in neon signs, gas discharge tubes. The reason that these tubes give off the brilliant yellows and orange hues and whites and so on is because of that very property that we mentioned of electrons. And so when we envision teaching students on a very interdisciplinary level, we do an awesome job in our chemistry department teaching them that lesson on electrons. But what can we do to take that to the next level? How do we put that lesson on steroids? So we kind of thought about, what if we had the kids come into the innovation studios and perhaps create their own neon sign? Because as Pittsburgh is becoming probably the country's more preeminent region of makers for young people, with companies here like Pittsburgh Tech Shop and the Remake Learning Organization and the Grable Foundation and the Sprout Fund supporting us to teach our kids how to be makers, we thought the Neon Sign Project would be great. Interdisciplinary-wise, there's lots of physics reasons. Using high voltage is what provides those electrons with the energy. When they jump back down, they give off a photon of light, characteristic of the color of the gas and the energy that was absorbed and so on. So there's a lot of technical issues there, but also in our chemistry class, the students learned how to bend glass so that they connect beakers and so forth. So they're learning a skill in chemistry that could be applied in an artistic way that has some science behind it. And why are neon signs made anyway? What is the exact history of the marketing of this great science invention? How has that affected consumerisms? So one of the things that we thought about was perhaps students that would be interested in perhaps piloting a project where they make a neon sign. Our original thought was each student would get to artistically design their own letter on a large piece of paper and a piece of burlap and so on, and learn the skills that it would take to bend the glass into the shape of the letter. And the engineering part is you have to pull a vacuum in the glass to get the air out and the neon in, and that's quite challenging. We don't have that equipment in our lab. We have to make it. So now we'll have to tinker, we'll have to problem solve, and as I tell my students, you just have to make it happen. You've got to do it. And so that's sort of the spirit of the assignment that we'd want the kids to experience, just the challenge of something they've never done before, but with all of the textbook learning that goes along with it in a very interdisciplinary setting. And of course, it dovetails very nicely because we have so many local artisans, not just in our community, but in our Pittsburgh Glass Center and in the Southside Glass Works and so on. So we've got people that we can reach out to if we need them and build those community partnerships. And again, I think the projects that we're thinking about in the Innovation Studios, again, the theme is going to be we need to take this learning to the next level. So I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Strikes me as a high school teacher how in elementary, kids say why all the time. And I heard you say why at least a dozen times in that. And that's really what we want students to do, is ask that question, why? And science does that, as you expressed. Ken Robinson said, creativity is the process of having original ideas that have value. It's a process. It's not random. And we would be teaching that design process through the STEAM studios. And I'll talk more about that in a bit. Jill Simpson, our foods and marketing teacher, could not be with us tonight. So I am going to do a yeoman's job of trying to explain to you something that's out of my field, but I'm fascinated by. One is innovation of foods. I was at the supermarket the other day, and I saw 13 different kinds of Cheez-Its. I used to only know one, and so somewhere in the last year, I guess, the food innovators have been trying to sell more Cheez-Its to me by giving me jalapeno, giving me cheddar, white cheddar, blue cheddar, I don't know. But that's the idea between food innovation. She also told me that this is the year of the hummus, okay? Or hummus. I guess it's not the hummus. That sounds like something from Star Wars. But hummus, perhaps you've tasted plummus, which is plum and hummus. Jill had a speaker the other day that was responsible for that flavor. She brings in food innovators, nutritionists, biochemists from Penn State who work at creating the 14th flavor of Cheez-Its. And she has our students work on that 14th flavor as well. They are trying to come up with the next hummus in her food groups by the design action of subtraction, and then figuring out what flavor to subtract and what flavor to put in. Again, lots of food science, lots of chemistry, and it sounds like a lot of fun in the testing as well. The lower left picture is also of 3D printed food, which is just starting to become a thing. I thought, maybe gumdrops are the first version of that, but I don't, gumdrops are just dropped. But 3D printing is something else that Jill is interested in. The other two pictures on the right-hand side have to do with conductive sewing, having clothing light up, which is becoming more and more fashionable. And Project Runway, the television show, they have connected with that project or that show called Project Runway. There's a competition to create lightable clothes. And so again, another market, something that kids are very much interested in. And it ties in with one of our most popular social events at the high school, the Glow Fest dance, where kids would wear their lightable clothing. So for more expertise, I'll leave that to Jill and Karen Potts. Experimentation, an essential aspect of creativity, is not being afraid to fail. Lee alluded to this, of having the students try things and not work out. And I chose this slide here to introduce Kent Wallish, our art teacher, because he's had some wonderful failures this fall. And, and he's here to tell us about them.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to put this up for a second here. Let's see. So I'm going to give you a little taste of what, the STEAM-inspired classes have been. I've had a chance to teach the chemistry and art class, and this was one of our projects, so you can kind of have a little concrete thing of what's going on. I proposed the question to my students, what causes metal to rust? They brought out their Chromebooks and started researching right away, came up with some ideas pretty quickly: oxygen, moisture, salt. Then we did all kinds of tests on different kinds of metals. What metals rust quicker, which ones go slower, what can increase the time of the rusting, and what can kind of stop the acceleration of the rust. Then we went through the history of creating metals. We talked about the history of the steel industry in Pittsburgh. And then we came to here. We found objects, screws, bolts, steel wool, different shaved metals, and then created our rust portraits. Sprayed them with salt water to encourage the rusting. And you can see the final product. I'll tell you what, it is incredible. We went through all these things, and you can see how, like, almost not even knowingly, touched on every area. Math, science, technology, history. It was incredible. And the students were so excited the whole time. Just like we said, sometimes like we would throw in things like aluminum, so, you know, shavings, and they were like, why isn't this rusting? And then we said, okay, let's see what this is. This is why, you know. And you can see there's some different techniques. This student left hers on a little thicker. She wanted to actually see more of the actual product. He used his more painterly. But I'll tell you what, this is a student who actually is homeschooled, and she comes just for this class and my painting class. So this whole STEAM program is what we really need to bring all these kids back into the classroom, to have them, you know, go through this new kind of learning, right? And for me, I'm so lucky to have a chance to, like, just teach this, and I can feel it. Like, I go home and I can't stop thinking about the next project we're going to do. It's inspiring to me as a teacher. I've been teaching for 22 years, and I go home and I can't stop thinking about it. It gives me a chance to also push the idea of, you know, taking those traditional techniques of creating artwork and pushing those too. So this is a class, but these studios, that's what's going to go on in these studios. So many teachers have come to me and said, can we work with you? And I said, pretty soon, I hope. We'll all be able to jump in here and we'll work together. So I think there's so many people on board with it, and it's really inspiring, and the kids are so excited about every project. Is like research, and when we fail, it's just as fun because we figure out why we failed. And I know a lot of times I learn even more from going through my failures and figuring out why that happened, and then the next product is even better. So I thank everyone for that quick presentation. I'll leave those up there quickly or as I sit down. And
Thank you. Our Daniel Goleman, who wrote the book Emotional Intelligence, speaks of empathy representing a foundation, it represents a foundation, should be, for all of the social competencies important for work. And I think that's something that we touch on a lot. We have a very compassionate community here at Bethel Park, and STEAM is a way of furthering that. I'd like to ask Maria Leonard from our Neil Armstrong School, she's our world language teacher, to join me here to talk with you about our Honduras outreach. If you don't know Maria, she is a native Honduran. She's been in America for how many years? 29, okay. She came before she was born. And she has created some wonderful connections with her home country and some schools in the coffee growing regions of Honduras. And we're hoping to reach out to those schools for our benefit as well as theirs, in the fact that they do not speak English, do they? No. So what do we need? We need then our Spanish students. We need our AP and Level 4 Spanish students to translate emails, to translate in video conferences, and so forth. Why don't you talk a little bit about the school?
All right. Again, I'm Maria Leonard. I've been working for the school district for 15 years, and it's exciting as the first day. And the first thing is that the kids hear my accent. And right there, they get their attention, which is great. I have one on the other teachers that don't have an accent. So they start looking and paying more attention. And I explain them, I learned English later in life. And, and this is why I have the accent. So they get interested in where are you from? And how did you get here? And, all those wonderful questions that, they show the interest. And so teaching sixth grade had inspired me to go back to my home country and also reach out to schools. And with this school, El Merendon School, it's a school up in the mountains, and it's a very poor area, it's a coffee growing area. And so the government gives school up to, 6th grade, and then the kids have to, manage to go to high school. And what they do is that there is this school that grows vegetables, they sell them, the kids have to find, try to find ways to raise the money to do projects. This school a few years ago didn't have running water, so they came with this project to bring water from a higher elevation, because all that is mountains. And they built a tank, they leveled up for an area, and they did it with the shovels. And the principal was telling me, these kids are so good anymore. There is not a behavior problem, because anytime that somebody misbehaves, the punishment is a half an hour with a shower. And that project went well. So they built a tank, and they have running water for the toilets and for showering. So the innovation part is the main thing in that school. So I think, having worked with the students there, and having, and then when Charles approached me about, this STEAM project, I thought, wow, what a great way to put the interest that the kids here in Bethel Park have in other cultures, and bring them a little closer by, communicating, and, through the Spanish students, doing so many, projects together. Perhaps even, they grow vegetables, trying to study the.
Right. I mean,
am I getting ahead?
No, you're great. You're great. Isn't she wonderful? I just wanted, I wanted folks to get a little sense of your school. I mean, obviously they're growing carrots there. They grow some things that we grow. They've done peppers and tomatoes just recently.
Yes.
But there's a lot of things that they don't. And so one thing that we're thinking of for our first project that would be very concrete is soil testing. What is the composition of our soil here and what we grow here in Pennsylvania in comparison to what is in Central America in the coffee growing regions of these rainy, temperate regions here? Well, actually it gets kind of chilly up there in the mountains, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it much different. So we'd have we'd have a concrete. I don't really want to say simple, but it's a concrete project, a defined project, because there's as Randy Posh, the CMU professor, said, it's the head fake. What they're going to learn is a little bit about science, a little bit about soil, a little bit about data, but they're going to learn about their own culture and this foreign culture, and what it is in a country, in a South American country, or a Central American country, which is quite a bit different than what they're accustomed to, as well as a wonderful way to bring in world languages into a very authentic, needed way. If you can imagine engineers who don't speak English working with our students, our student engineers who don't speak English, working with Spanish students to translate the science and the engineering through Spanish to the Spanish-speaking folks. And of course, we'll have our teachers, we'll have Maria working along with them. But it sounds like just a wonderful interdisciplinary way for them to learn how to collaborate and learn how to communicate when collaborating and communicating means miles away, cultures apart, but yet on a common goal. Yeah.
Creating. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. I mentioned engineering, and so without engineers, science is just philosophy. I love this quote, and it's my introduction to Bill Wells, who is our technology and engineering guru here at the high school.
Hello, everyone. Before I get started, I just have a handout that I want to share with you so you can kind of follow along what I'm about to explain. Thank you. This is a project that we currently teach in a Project Lead the Way class. So if you remember, a few years back, we decided that we wanted to offer Project Lead the Way classes in engineering and problem solving at the high school level. But I think that not only the students that participate in those classes, other students can also benefit greatly from some of this experience. And as you know, we just recently purchased a 3D printer at the end of last school year that we're trying to roll out and use in an interdisciplinary setting throughout the high school. So period 7 every day, I have some students that come down on a volunteer basis from a study hall that thought, you know what, I want to be an engineer. I'm taking some higher level calculus classes. I'm taking some higher level chemistry classes. And I really want to learn about this 3D printing, and I want to learn about what it does. So they come down on a daily basis, and we work with the 3D printer, and we're working through 3D modeling and learning how this this printer works. But what I thought was interesting is a senior boy I have in there, looking at Penn State for engineering, has been accepted there already, was looking at a 3D CNC router that we also have. And he said, I was just at Penn State, and they have this same one. I didn't know we had this thing. Well, it would have been probably great if he could have came down, knew that we had this thing, and he could have learned how to use it and have been a leg, one step ahead of the students that he's going to be sitting in classes with when he starts at Penn State next fall. So I just wanted to share this little activity, and this is a problem-solving activity, one of many that we could do for an engineering portion of this STEAM education. So this particular problem says that there's a furniture company that uses that throws away thousands of 3/4 of an inch by 3/4 of an inch scrap pieces of wood, and they want to figure out what they can do with these scraps rather than just throwing them in the trash. So the design statement is they're supposed to take and make a puzzle using 27 of these cubes. So I brought one of the cubes made by a student in a years past. We haven't got to this assignment yet, but you can see that there's several parts of this that did fit together as a cube before I took the rubber band off of it. And I'll let you guys try to put it back together if you're so brave. But at any rate, with this, if you flip through, the bottom section of this is the proposal, and it's explaining that you need to have a portfolio and keep track of all of the things that you do along the way and how you came up with the resolution or the solution to the problem that you have in front of you. So this was one done by a student a couple of years ago, and you can see they first came up and figured out how many different parts can you make with 4 cubes? How many different parts can you make with 5 cubes? How many different parts can you make with 6 cubes? So they do this on isometric graph paper. So they're learning about isometric drawings, they're learning about math, they're learning about geometry, and how that applies to engineering. On the following page, and these are double-sided so that we could save a little bit of paper, but you can see that there's a diagram there that allows them to lay out what their puzzle is going to look like and how the parts are going to go together to make their puzzle. And they have to come up with 2 different designs, and then they choose the design that they feel would be appropriate for their model. So then the old school method that some of you might be familiar with is to do a isometric view drawing, which is a 3-dimensional view drawing, a top, a front, and a right side view, and then also do that's an orthographic projected drawing, and then also do an isometric drawing along with that. So you see the 2 dimensions, and then you also see it in 3 dimensions. So each one of these parts that you look at are all here. So they took these cubes, and they glued them together and to make the parts that you see on these sheets that follow. So there's 2 on each page. So the first page has this L shape, and it also has this flat block that is comprised of 6 different cubes. As you move through, the next particular piece is this piece that this puzzle that this student designed. So again, he has the multi-view drawing or the orthographic projected drawing as well as the isometric drawing, and then this particular part, and then the last one on the last page is this part. So they do that with pencil and paper. And then we use a software called Inventor. Inventor is a 3D modeling software that's used in industry to model things in a 3D view. So you can see those same drawings are done in pencil and paper. On the following pages are done using this Inventor software. So you have, you're introducing all of these students to this software, Inventor, and creating these parts. So, and it's kind of challenging for them. They take a look at this part and they're trying to represent this graphically on their computer screen, and it becomes, somewhat difficult. Flipping through, it's just a representation again of each of these parts. But when they're done, they've created these using pencil and paper. They've created them using the Inventor software. From the Inventor software, they can take them and make them animated so they can show how the parts go together, how the parts come apart, so it's almost like a PowerPoint presentation. And then when they're done, they have this puzzle that they can work on assembling. But what they can also do from using the Inventor software is export these parts as an STL file. Then you can upload the parts into this MakerBot software, and then you can print the parts. And I didn't have time to print one of each, but you can see this is one of the parts that is incorporated in the puzzle. They made it with the cubes and then went again and printed them using the 3D printer. So just a small example of what we could do in an engineering class in an interdisciplinary setting where we could expose more kids to these types of activities, problem-solving activities, introducing measuring skills, math skills, isometric drawings, multi-view drawings, things of that nature, so that students aren't saying, you know what, I'm going to Penn State next year and I didn't realize we even had this and I should have been down here taking this class. So it's just a great way to expose these things to all of the students, not just the few that decide they want to sign up for them. Thank you.
Very familiar to teachers and administrators is John Dewey, the educational theorist from about a century ago. We only think when confronted with a problem. Creating problems for our students to solve is where the traction is, to get them thinking. So these are the spaces that we introduced to you last month. On floor 4 for critical thinking, critical inquiry and academic creativity. Studio 3 on floor 3. Experimentation and exploration focus. Studio 2, collaboration and communication focus. And you can see we also have, we're going to be leveraging the current areas that we are already filling to capacity in the school. And then the Innovation Hall, of course, is existing. I list them like that because if you know Bethel Park High School, you enter on the 4th floor and you move the way down. And so there they are. Experience is the best teacher, and STEAM education is really about experience. And what we're asking for is a way to complete this grant with spaces that create the space for those experiences to take place in a myriad of ways, as explained by how those spaces are different. Oops. Let me get that back. I have mentioned design thinking once or twice tonight, and this is an interdisciplinary thinking. And so not only is this exciting for our students, this is a new way for our students to be learning. It's a new way for our teachers to be teaching. And so part of the grant calls for our teachers to be in service in ways to design their plans and plan their designs and working collaboratively together. Just as we intend to our students to collaborate, we have some work to do to show our teachers how to collaborate. So again, I think it's a profound shift that we could be entering into with how we do business at the high school and down through the grades. I had the pleasure of seeing Dale Doherty at the Maker Faire last month in Pittsburgh, and he said making is personal. One of the best experiences is having an idea and making it real. Students care about things that they make, just like we do. If you make something, it's from your own hands, it's from your own mind. They get excited about that just as anybody does. And so our expectations and outcomes A framework for teaching and learning in an interdisciplinary thinking, experiential learning, as I just said, by doing and making, touching on the 4 C's that have become foremost in our pedagogical thinking of the last 10 years: critical thinking, communication, collaboration, creativity, the things that employers are looking for, the things that our economy needs. Increased interest in STEAM-related careers is an outcome we think we would have, especially with the 9th grade experience. And understanding design thinking, method, process, human-centered work, performance, production, everything that the new high school was built to instill that maker mindset. If we teach today's, John Dewey also said, if we teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow. And I will end there because I think that that aligns quite well with our motto here at Bethel Park, where futures begin. So thank you for your attention, and all of us will entertain questions if you have them.
I'd just like to comment that it's my privilege to work for all of you. You've just blown my socks off tonight. The things that you are accomplishing are things that I dreamed of, and the reason that I became a teacher in the first place, and you're making it happen. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Rhodes. I think this might be your farewell gift. And we give it right back to you.
Do I have any
Yes.
board questions?
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say a couple comments, and I was going to save them till the end, but a couple things that you touched on were really got me. Some of the things I wanted to do when I first came on the board, I wanted to see grants used more. And we were always told, we brought in grant writers, we were always told we were too rich of a district, we can't get them. But lately, we've gotten some grants, and some of these seem to be real important, and especially the ones in technology that have been coming in. But the way I hear this, the way that this was presented of this grant being implemented, it's really taken me, hitting me and getting me juiced up to go, as you say so too. It's bringing some excitement back to me. You also touched on community partnerships, and I think that's another great thing to do. And just one of the last things I'll say is when I was in school, you mentioned the question why. One of the things I often said was, why do I need to know this? Why do I need to know this? And I always seem to get, we just need to do it. You just need to do it. But this program seems to touch on that question. It answers it by bringing the experiences to the child and getting them to do the hands-on activity. And I thank you for the presentation, for taking the time to answer the questions that we as a board have. I in no way intended the questions to be like I was micromanaging, because you guys are the experts on it, and you have shown that tonight by what you have done. The last thing I'll say is that I hope our cameras were able to catch those art projects, and if they can't, because it's some really great things that are going on. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. I would just say in response that there is a synergy happening here. Over the last 7 months, the facilitator team, in talking with their teachers, we definitely feel that energy. And I take your point on community partnerships. The ones we have started have been wonderful, and we want to continue that outreach, because Bethel Park is a community, and it's a great way of bridging those two with the students.
And I think you're doing what we envisioned the high school to do,
Okay.
which is bringing all the teachers and the different disciplines together, which wasn't necessarily happening when we had, 8 separate buildings,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Okay.
Anybody else have any questions on the board or comments?
Thank you.
No, it's fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lastly, before we go into the agenda items, do we have someone who could address the rumors that are floating out on the redistricting / kindergarten situation, please?
Your microphone's not on. There we go. First of all, I know that many of you are here because you're concerned about the rumors that are out there about William Penn, but I am so delighted that you were here tonight, because your children are just starting out, and what you saw here today is their future, and it's only going to grow from this point in time. And I I just really hope that all of you are as excited about the potential of the learning opportunities for your children, because this is just such a tremendous time to be in education. So kudos to all of you for being here and getting to hear that firsthand. So I suspect that you are here, many of you, because of the rumors regarding a kindergarten center at William Penn. This conversation started about a month ago when a presentation was done at a curriculum committee, and it happened to be on camera, and it was filmed, and I believe it was shown on cable television as well, regarding redistricting. As you know, in 2010, we started the process of trying to balance some of our class sizes in an equitable way, so that our students some students wouldn't be in a class with 12 or 13 kids and some with 29 because they were in one residential zone or another. And so 5 years ago, we started the painful process of moving streets and uprooting families from the comfortable zones they were in, schools that they were used to going to. As we warned parents at that time that this would be a 5-year process, and as we approach this 5-year mark, we're starting to see some trends and shifts in population again. We have a couple of bubble-sized classes that are creating challenges in some of our buildings. We've had to move teachers to accommodate bubble grade levels. And so we are exploring options so that we don't have to keep uprooting families on what we call the swing streets to balance those class sizes year after year after year, or 5 years as the case may be. To that end, we're exploring all possibilities. One of the options that Dr. Stark presented last month was the possibility of a kindergarten center. Now, we are far off from making that a reality anytime in the near future because the board has asked us to do our due diligence in determining whether that was the most effective route to take. So at this point, we have a lot of work to do. Dr. Stark has been working heart and soul in having some conversations with principals. We're planning on getting input from parents and the challenge is going to be reaching those parents of the preschool age children as well, so that we have their input. We need to talk to the parents of William Penn, and in due time, all those things will happen. There's a lot of work that goes into redistricting and realigning schools, whether that is from looking at staffing, students, residential populations, the demographics, the funding, the transportation, the food services, the services that could be offered, the services that would not be offered, could not be offered. So there's a lot of decisions that go into that kind of a process. To that end, the board isn't ready to make that commitment this year. So there is no imminent change that's going to happen for the following school year. It will be studied well, thoroughly, and completely before a decision is made as to see whether or not that's a feasible option for our community if the benefits outweigh the disruption that it would cause. And we know that it's disruptive. So to that end, we're studying it, but no decision has been made.
Thank you. And we're just beginning the study. That was when it was first introduced to us as a board at our curriculum meeting as to whether we wanted to have it studied or not. So that was the first mention that we all heard of it. It was given the okay to begin to study it, and now it's starting down that study phase. I can tell you it took me 3 cycles on the board to get the high school project completely completed. So a project of this magnitude, a change of this magnitude does not happen overnight. It does not happen over 1 school year. It probably doesn't happen over 2 school years. So the rumors are just that. They're just rumors that are floating around. There is nothing being done in the imminent future but a study, but looking at things.
Mrs. Cook, may I say something?
Yes, sir.
I think the fact that this was made as a formal presentation at a open public meeting gives the impression that it was something that was already predetermined. But the way the laws are in the state with the Sunshine Act, it is really illegal for the board to enter into that type of discussion and bounce ideas off of each other behind closed doors. So the very fact that it was offered in public is something that was evidence of transparency rather than the fact that somebody had already formulated a plan behind closed doors.
Right.
Thank you. That's true.
I need a motion to adopt the agenda for business items. Wait a minute, I have a question. I'm running 2 meetings tonight. I haven't run 2 meetings together for a while. Do we adopt the agenda, or do I run the curriculum meeting, or the committee meeting first, and then decide if they want the items moved on to? I usually run it kind of concurrently, so yes, what am I doing here? So I'm not going to adopt an agenda, so I'm not following that. Okay, see, I knew that wasn't right, so. Okay, so we're just going to talk about the items under the various committees first to see if the board wants those items left on for the agenda. So under curriculum committee, I have one long item. Any questions on the curriculum committee item?
I was just wondering if anybody could explain all the changes that are going on in the music department with the trips and no trips and...
Ms. O'Rourke, you want to
Sure.
respond?
The changes have occurred. The Bethel Park has been competing, the marching band has been competing when they go on their spring trip for quite a long time. What has happened is they've placed those competing bands in areas that our band directors didn't necessarily think were in our best interest to continue to compete, and the other school districts aren't sending bands to compete. So in that, with our annual trip, the marching band will not attend the annual trip. They will, however, still attend the Disney trip and march in Disney. It's just that the complexity of the competitions of the music, across the country when we had people competing against us has diminished greatly. So in that, the marching band will no longer go on the annual music trip. However, there is still competition for the ensembles, and those students will still participate in the annual trip and still compete. So there was a change in the chaperones. The teachers would go because that gets reduced by 2. If the marching band isn't there, it gets reduced by 2. But the other parts of the music department will still compete. And then the other thing that you had concerning the music department in your packets was the opportunity to move those particular ensembles that are tryouts and also require a lot of extra time and effort and practice to be made honors courses for the first time that the child goes through it, and then would carry that credit. So that's not on this board agenda, but was part of the packet as well. So it's all kind of intermixed. When you asked Mrs. Dobas about what's all going on in the music department, it's all interconnected.
And some of those subgroups are the parts of the marching band. When you're saying
Correct.
ensembles, it's some of the
Correct.
same students. They would be going as those
Yeah,
different ensemble
I asked
groups,
how many
but-
students that would be less, because typically, a student that plays in this symphonic band also may play trumpet in the marching band. They said that the number would reduce, but not significantly. They didn't feel that it was going to be a reduction of a bus or anything like that.
That's
It was.
what it looked like to me, that it was
yeah.
a lot of the same students that cross over. some of
Correct.
those
They
subgroups.
cross over. Correct.
I think I have had calls, we would perhaps at our next curriculum meeting like some further information about the honors designation. And
Be
I
happy
know
to.
they gave us some written literature, but I think perhaps, am I correct in the questioning I got on that, to have a little further information in that?
Absolutely.
Is there a curriculum committee meeting
There's
planned?
nothing planned at this point,
So
but
we will
Mrs.
need to plan a
Buckley.
committee meeting
Because I know that decision needs to be made for the curriculum
before the
guide,
course
right?
selection
Correct.
guide comes out. Correct.
Did I answer your question, Mrs. Debus?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you
thank
very
you.
much.
Any other questions on the item under Curriculum Committee for tonight? Is everyone okay with moving that then on to the agenda for business action tonight? Okay. Personnel Committee, any questions on any of the Personnel Committee items? We're not approving any new bus drivers tonight, I see, huh?
Didn't recruit him yet.
Yeah. Is everyone okay with those seven items moving forward to the business agenda tonight? Any objections?
So, with number 3, the whole basketball thing that we approved a couple months ago has not really changed, it's just the people are now changing?
And the way that they're,
Well, we
salaries-
already approved the
Yeah, you approved
salaries
that.
before, but, so we just had some resignations and we're
It looks like they've just added and deleted people, if I'm reading that correctly.
there are no new positions created, if that's what you're asking. Nothing that would change the budget.
And for number 2, closing the attendance coordinator position, that salary just goes back into the,
It actually is, the attendance position would just go back into the general fund, and the literary magazine and the Family Consumer Science Club would just trade off, so it would offset one another.
Facilities and Services. 4 items there.
Question on number 4.
Yes.
I just wanted to know when, I don't think I saw when it was proposed to be done, the disruption in class or services, and how long of a project?
Mr. Howard, you want to respond to that?
Sure. David, the win is open. It's an open date for that. We would like to do it with no interruption to the to the school day. So it could happen over a break or over the holiday, or if we can't, then we would either do it in the evenings or wait till summer. So
How long
it's
of a project?
it's probably a 2-week project.
That's all inside.
It's all
water line,
inside, yes.
water line.
How long before the pipe goes completely bad?
Well, I think we're fine with it for this year. I mean, we can manage if anything does happen. But it's to the point where it could go, and and if it does, we'd be able to manage that piece, of course. But we definitely need to get that
It would
replaced.
cost more then if it went.
Well, if a piece went or we see leakage, we'd handle that little piece internally.
for number 2, or were you going to ask about number?
I was going to ask about Matt, since the end of school year is quite a ways, the bids are good for that length of time?
Yeah, this is just the work to do the engineering service and the core borings. So the core boring pricing would be good.
No, this is, I'm still on number 4.
Still on number 4.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I heard number 2 there.
Well,
I did too. You weren't the only one.
Yes,
I did too, but I wasn't going to rub it in.
yes. The pricing would be good through the school year.
Okay. Thank you.
Number 2, I was just wondering, so the recommendation is to go with just part 1 of their proposal and to wait then for the other part where the engineering part and so forth?
Yeah.
In their contract, they had 2 things.
Sure, we're going to wait for
Section 1
the
is-
actual design. There is another fee if in the contract for the actual design of the new hillside. We were going to wait to approve that until we see what remediations we'll see when we do the core drillings.
Have we done the temporary?
We have done the preliminary work that we approved.
Yeah.
Nothing of significance came up at that point. There
No,
is-
but I thought we were going to do some kind of like temporary fix for the winter months.
Yes,
Did we do that?
we're getting pricing.
Oh,
We've been having trouble getting contractor to get in there. So we have a price coming tomorrow. I hope to do that, and we'll get that done immediately.
You said they were already engaged in going out there the last time we met.
We had a guy committed, and
It fell through.
I think he got a little bigger project, and
Okay.
he dropped us
Cool.
pretty quickly, so.
So I told them, the homeowners, that they were going to see work out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they will see work out there hopefully soon, so.
When the work takes place, will the homeowners be notified?
It really won't interfere with anything, they will, but I could.
No, but
we
I
could-
think it would be wise
we-
to,
we-
because
that's
they're
a-
keeping an eye on
Sure.
things there, so to. I
That's a
think that
great
would be-
suggestion, and when we get started, one of us will get down there to tell the homeowners what's going on.
Yeah.
I like how I
Thanks,
looked over
thanks,
there.
Bill.
Thanks, Matt.
I'm glad Bill was still
One
here.
of us, Bill.
One of Bill.
Hey,
Bill
Matt,
might have told me no, I mean,
Is
No, I saw
the-
him say yes. He shook his head yes.
Is the 15,739, is that a not to exceed amount, or is it time and materials?
that is a not to exceed amount.
Okay.
Yeah, as you can see, when he gave us that first not to exceed amount, we kind of stopped him, we had a conversation, hey, you did your preliminary investigation, what have you found? He says, well, he reviewed that with us, and
Yeah.
we reported. And so instead of doing any more work under that, we're taking this next phase.
Okay.
Okay, and while we're on that, and I know we have C attachment on number 3, but I prefer to have it in the motion, a not to exceed amount. What costs were incurred at Washington? And are we suspecting this is going to be a little less than Washington?
It's probably
or
about the
more?
exact same.
All right.
So in the cost, we were right around $28,000.
So can we say not to exceed $30,000 in this motion?
I would be comfortable with
Be
that.
comfortable? And so Russ, could you
Sure.
add that to that motion? Any other questions on any facilities and services?
Yes, please. On number 1, I have no idea about, we have some information here which is helpful. What kind of a warranty do you have on this particular piece of equipment?
I don't have the agenda in front of me. Are we speaking of the?
Scrubber.
The scrubber.
The,
This is scrubber?
Pardon me.
Yeah, we get a standard warranty with the Fagan Company.
Okay.
And right now, we talk about a 2-year warranty with that.
2 year. And would this be used daily?
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
any other questions? Is everyone okay with moving these 4 items forward to the business agenda?
Yeah, just another quick follow-up on that. It's going to save 50% production. How long do you estimate then taking an hourly time to make up for the cost of that?
Gee, that's a great question, but it definitely will service, take care of us as far as whether we do manual labor, that type of thing. But you're talking, just off the top of my head, we're talking probably about 2 hours.
How long, how many man-hours then would it take to make up for the cost of the unit?
Oh, in that respect, you're talking about possibly man-hours within a day you're talking about?
As many as it would take to get the $6,000.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're talking about, top of my head, I didn't do it, but you're talking about, probably within,
About 3,000. Probably about a year's worth of work
I
there,
was gonna say
David.
close to a year.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Everyone okay with moving these items then? Finance Committee, any questions on the 3 items under finance?
I just have one question about item number 2. Certainly not against the item, I'm just confused as to why it's held in Hagerstown, Maryland, and nothing closer to the Pittsburgh area.
We did look, Russ, for conferences closer, and for some reason, they were 5 times the cost, even though they were, we probably could have not had an overnight stay. And, but in this whole case, it was actually cheaper for them to go to Hagerstown.
It's just bizarre.
I guess the people that are putting us on aren't charging that premium for the training.
Gotcha, thank you.
Good question, good answer. Yeah. Anything else? Good for these items? All right, then. We're ready to go back then and adopt the agenda for business items. I need a motion. So moved.
I'd like, I have to make a motion to amend an item. Or not to do that?
Oh, we amended it in the committee meeting.
Oh, we did?
added it, so-
Adopt the agenda as amended.
Move the agenda as amended.
Okay.
Okay, just want to make sure we do.
I need a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's fine.
Thank you. This is different because we're holding two meetings kind of concurrently, so it wouldn't normally run this way exactly. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of October 27, 2014.
So moved.
2015, I believe that would be. Oh, typo. Second, can I get a second? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries 9-0. I need to announce executive sessions held November 5th, 2015 for personnel, other legal matters, and to receive information, and November 17th, 2015 for personnel, other legal matters, and to receive information. Staff report. Who's up? Dr. Stark?
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to present some good news to you this evening. You've heard earlier this evening about the interdisciplinary learning at Bethel Park High School, particularly Mrs. Simpson's unit on innovative foods. To give you a little more detail, as you heard, the students were charged to develop an original prototype formula for a new flavored hummus. Some of the flavors developed by the students included pumpkin spice, buffalo chicken, and curry. Mrs. Smoller's marketing students tested the hummus recipes through focus groups, and the food students were required to alter their recipes based on the suggestions of the marketing students. The marketing students also had to determine how much the product would sell for in a grocery store and develop a marketing campaign to promote the product. Mr. Shostuski's technology education students will develop a container for the hummus using a 3D printer. Mr. Walsh's art students will work with the food students to create a label for the product, including a nutrition label, ingredients list, allergy warning, consumption instructions, and a label design. A team of students will take this project to competition in March at the Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America's state competition in Gettysburg, and hopefully on to the national competition next summer if the project earns first place. Next semester, the students will try their hand at developing an original vegetable yogurt. Yum. We are pleased that these types of products are going on at the high school to give students the opportunity to participate in hands-on, real-world experiences that cross several curricular areas. That is truly 21st century learning. The Rotary Club of Bethel Park named senior Francesca Gallietta as its October Rotary Student of the Month. Each month during the school year, the Rotary Club recognizes Bethel Park High School students for outstanding commitment to school and/or community. Francesca was recognized for her community service participation with the Joey Fabus 5K Superhero Run Walk and her efforts to make transfer students and freshmen feel comfortable at the high school by co-chairing the mentor committee that organizes meetings and pizza parties for these students. Francesca also collected 1,000 pounds of food for the South Hills Interfaith Ministries and participated in the drama club's Feed the Need to Read production at the elementary schools to encourage students to develop a love of reading. Congratulations, Francesca. Our fall sports teams recently concluded their seasons with positive outcomes. 5 teams qualified for the WPIAL playoffs: boys and girls cross country, boys soccer, girls volleyball, and football. Girls volleyball and football advanced to the quarterfinals. Several athletes earned individual accolades. Danielle Heinisch finished in 5th place at the WPIAL Cross Country Championships and 44th place at States. John Sellop finished in 2nd place at the Section Golf Championships and advanced to the WPIAL semifinals. Jess Fanning and Kayla Veith advanced to the quarterfinals of the Section Doubles Championships. Congratulations to all of our teams and coaches on an outstanding fall season. Independence Middle School students had the opportunity to spend time in the inflatable planetarium that was set up in the auditorium for 6 days. The students entered the inflatable dome where representatives from the Pittsburgh Conference transported the students to Stonehenge to talk about how this interesting rock formation was used as a calendar. Then the sky darkened, and the students learned about the stories behind constellations, such as the Big Dipper and Orion. The planetarium lesson was a great addition to our science curriculum. Neil Armstrong Middle School students on Team Apollo are piloting an exciting online program from EverFi and the Pittsburgh Penguins called Future Goals Hockey Scholar. This is a free STEM-based online experience for students that helps them to explore science and math and engineering concepts within the framework of hockey. The students use their classroom Chromebooks to participate in a variety of activities, including determining angles for hockey players to pass the puck along the boards, learning how the shape of a skate's blades impact a player's ability to stop quickly, and experimenting with different materials to make goalie pads more effective. When students complete a lesson, they earn a virtual trophy that they can put on a shelf in their virtual locker room. Upon successful completion of the program, the students will earn a virtual Stanley Cup. Student feedback has been extremely positive. Earlier this evening, I spoke about how our high school teachers are collaborating across disciplines. I'm also pleased to announce that teachers in other schools are also collaborating. Recently, second grade students at William Penn worked with students from Bethel Park High School to learn how their original drawings of monsters could be transformed into a plastic figure using a 3D printer. The second graders read the book, The Notebook of Doom, Day of the Nightcrawlers, and drew their own monsters based off the book. With the help of Bethel Park High School students Tarish Ball and Joey Weston, the students took digital photos of their monsters, which the high school students uploaded into a program that the 3D printer could convert and print. Coordinating this event were Penn librarian Milena Popovic and Bethel Park High School tech ed teacher Bill Wells, who also brought one of the high school's 3D printers to Penn so the students could see how the technology works. Once the monsters are printed, they will be given to the creative writing students at the high school, who will write a story based on their monster, and then they will go to Penn to share their original stories with the second graders. As I said before, we continue to be very excited about all the meaningful collaboration opportunities our teachers are creating for our students. Our district continues to reinforce the safety principles of the ALICE program that was introduced to our students and staff last spring. Even though our students participated in lockdown and evacuation drills last year, they continue to review and participate in drills this school year as well. The Safety Committee at Washington recently wrote an original skit and performed it for the students in advance of their fall evacuation drill. The teachers were pleased to know that the students did not forget what ALICE stands for: alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. And they knew exactly what to do when the evacuation drill occurred the following day. Bethel Park High School science teacher Lee Cristofano received the grand prize in the Common Sense Media STEAM Challenge for his lesson plan, Soccer Kicks, a real versus ideal projective motion experiment. According to the Common Sense Media webpage, the lesson really impressed the judges. It does everything right. It hooks students with a compelling topic, it blends math with science, gets students out in the world, integrates technology in authentic ways, and gets students thinking and acting scientifically. Mr. Cristofano earned a $2,000 Amazon gift card for his winning lesson plan. The Bethel Park School District was proud to host the 2015 Three Rivers Educational Technology Conference, also known as TRETC. The conference welcomed over 600 area educators in Bethel Park High School to experience the latest and greatest in educational technology. Normally, this conference will be held at a conference site, but Bethel Park Tech Director Ron Ryer worked to have the conference brought to a school for the first time in conference history, and Bethel Park High School did not disappoint as the event's host. Thank you to Ron and everyone who worked very hard to make Bethel Park High School shine for this event. The Bethel Park School District is also pleased to be invited to participate in a pilot program offered by the Arts Education Collaborative, where our newly and recently hired art and music teachers will participate in arts-specific conversations based on the district's teacher induction plan and spend time with external mentors who have graduated from the Collaboratives Leadership Academy. Our art and music teachers will also have the opportunity to meet at various regional arts venues. We're very excited that the opportunities are there for our teachers to enhance their classroom instruction through participation in this program. And that concludes our report for this evening.
Thank you. Student government.
Hi there. My name is Natalie Lalama, and I'm the senior school board representative from Bethel Park Student Government. So this past Veterans Day, Student Government had our Wounded Warrior Wednesday event. So on Veterans Day during lunch periods, Student Government students were selling stickers, wristbands, and pins, and all the proceeds went to Wounded Warrior Project. So we raised a little over $110 that day, so that was pretty exciting. And students and staff are still displaying the items that they bought. I know we all have our stickers on our Chromebook covers, and everybody has their pins and their wristbands, so still supporting our troops. Also, student government underclassmen recently returned from the Pennsylvania Association of Student Council State Conference. It was held in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and there they learned valuable lessons in leadership and student involvement and how to be an active member of both their school and their community. So we're looking forward to new ideas and continuing success at Bethel Park this year. Thank you.
Thanks, Natalie. PTA, PTO Council.
Hello, I am Caitlin Metzler representing the PTA Council. And news first from Memorial. Memorial had a very successful Spirit Day at Olive Oil's Pizza. They raised over $180. They also had their 3-day fall book fair. Their parent-teacher conferences went well, and the PTA provided a delicious dinner for the teachers. Right now, Memorial is in the middle of their Sarah's Candy fundraiser, and they also just had a Spirit Night at Chick-fil-A. News out of George Washington. On November 9th, George Washington Elementary had their Chick-fil-A Spirit Night. The families of George Washington helped raise $170 for the PTO. Mrs. Bullets collected extra Halloween candy last week to be put in care packages being sent over to the troops. Beginning this week, the PTO will be selling red and white poinsettias for $9 each. George Washington Elementary will be sponsoring a shimmering food drive from November 23rd until December 14th. Students will be donating non-perishable items to be donated to SHIM. On Friday, December 4th, the PTO will sponsor Cookies with Santa from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And on Wednesday, December 9th, George Washington will have its holiday sing-along at 7 p.m. in the Bethel Park High School auditorium. News from Ben Franklin. The Ben PTO had a great month. This past weekend, they hosted their annual Ladies' Night Out event at the Bethel Park Community Center. This year, they partnered with the South Hills location of Painting with a Twist, who graciously donated 75% of their proceeds to the PTO. It was a fun evening for all who attended and a successful fundraiser at the same time. And their PTO also wrapped up their Sarah's and Mrs. Fields fundraising events for this year, which were well received by the Franklin families. Out of William Penn, the William Penn PTO was asked to hold a school-wide party for Halloween. The weather was so nice, all the games were held outside. There were a total of 5 stations that each grade visited for 15 minutes each. The PTO provided sugar cookies from Metz as the snack. The William Penn PTO kicked off the Character Trait Education program this year by asking all students to wear a special color that coordinates with the trait of the month. This month's trait is gratitude, and the corresponding color is yellow. The students wore yellow on Friday, November 6th to show their gratitude. And the William Penn PTO tried a new salsa fundraiser that did well. Out of Lincoln, Lincoln had a PTO meeting on November 5th. They also had a successful Spirit Night at TGI Fridays on November 9th. Lincoln received 10% of the proceeds from families who presented the TGI Fridays fundraiser card when purchasing their meal. Lincoln's librarian, Mrs. Paz, organized a Pittsburgh Pride Reading Club that will meet during 2 lunch periods to discuss the assigned book Macaroni Boy. The club will end with a meeting at the public library on December 10th, where participating students will enjoy a presentation from the Heinz History Center. Out of NAMS, the NAMS PTO has had a strong start to the year. They are giving more than ever in focusing on fun events for the kids. They have fun contests for the students during lunch and make sure every child is aware NAMS PTO is there for them. They made the first PTO meeting fun for everyone. It was held in the gym with games, a bouncy house, and face painting. Their first bingo was the biggest ever, and at the parents' request, they plan to add an additional bingo to the schedule this winter. They are now focused on upcoming events such as their Santa Shop, the Charity Carnival, and Battle of the Books. They are looking forward to making this year the best yet for every student, parent, and staff. And finally, out of IMS, their craft show is November 28th from 9 to 3, and they are still looking for parent volunteers for this event. They need to contact Sharon Kai if they're interested. Their clothing sale was a success, and everyone should have their orders. The first IMS PTO meeting of the year will be held this Wednesday evening at IMS in the library at 7 p.m., and all are welcome. And they are still looking for volunteers for the events coming up at IMS. They include 8th grade Bold and Gold, Staff Appreciation Luncheon, and 8th grade Fun Day.
Great, thank you. I'm glad that some of the same things that I was involved in are still going on, but it never ceases to amaze me that you think of new things, painting with a twist, a salsa sale. Great, great ideas. Solicitors report.
Mrs. Cook will submit that by electronic mail to the superintendent, excuse me, tomorrow for distribution of board members.
And we didn't have any committee meetings to report on. Any public comments on agenda items this evening? Agenda items, name and address at the microphone.
Ann Bordeley, Ashland Drive, Bethel Park. I kind of lost track in facilities and service between item 2 and item 4. So what I'm requesting is that you explain perhaps the location of the hillside landslide, whether this is the problem that existed a couple years ago when houses were flooded down there. I just don't know what we're talking about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on agenda items this evening?
Given that you addressed the kindergarten center, is that considered an agenda item?
It is not. It was before the meeting. We talked about that. Yep. We'll move into business items then. Mrs. Buckley, Curriculum Committee, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Cook. There is just one item this evening under curriculum, and there are 3 components. Would anyone like any of those components held out? Hearing none, I move the school-sponsored overnight educational activities, which includes the PMEA Regional Band Festival, PMEA All-State Music Festival, and the PMEA Regional State Orchestra.
Second.
Items 1A, B, and C have been moved by Mrs. Buckley and seconded by Mr. Means. Any questions or comments on these items? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those items carry 9-0. Personnel Committee and Mrs. Rule.
There are 7 items under personnel. Are there any that anyone would like to have held out?
Number 2, please.
2? Any others? I see none. I move item 1. It's approval of substitutes. 3, approval of extra duty responsibility program. 4, change of assignment. 5, appointment of personnel. 6, acceptance of a resignation. And 7, approval of administration tuition reimbursement.
Second.
Item 1 and 3 through 7 have been moved by Mrs. Rule and seconded by Mr. Spacuzza. Any questions or comments on any of these items? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those items carry 9-0. Mrs. Rule.
I move item 2, approval of extra duty staffing changes.
Second.
Item 2 has been moved by Mrs. Rule and seconded by Mr. Means. Any questions or comments on this item? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
That item carries 8-1. Facilities and Services Committee and Mr. Spacuzza.
Thank you, Mrs. Cook. Seeing 4 items under Facility and Services this evening, I would like to move, would anyone like any of these held out separately? Hearing none, I would move the following 4 items Item number 1, purchase of the Chariot Ice Scrub 20 scrubber. Item number 2, acceptance of the geotechnical proposal for the test borings for the high school hillside landslide. Item number 3, as amended, construction management services not to exceed $30,000, and the approval of a water line upgrade at Independence Middle School.
Second.
Items 1 through 4 under Facilities and Services Committee have been moved by Mr. Spacuzza and seconded by Mr. Means. Could we have an explanation of item 2, where that hillside is located, Mr.
Sure.
Howard?
The location of the hillside slide is the fill area on the where the old high school used to sit. It is actually behind the softball field. Yeah, so it's the hill that goes down to, there's like a little creek down there and some homes a little bit further away.
Yeah, and I think Sherwood Drive would
Sherwood.
be the back of the houses that sit facing Sherwood Drive. It's not where the other one was.
Right.
Correct. Any other questions or comments on these 4 items? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those items carry 9-0. Finance Committee and Mr. Amidits.
Yes, there are 3 items under the Finance Committee. Would anybody want any of these held out for this further discussion? Hearing none, I move all 3 items. Item number 1, the bill list for November the 2015 meeting. Item number 2, which reads the National Electric Code Training. And item number 3, items declared unused and unnecessary.
Second.
Items 1 through 3 under Finance Committee have been moved by Mr. Amidits and seconded by Mrs. Buckley. Any questions or comments on any of these items? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those items carry 9-0. Now we're open for public comments on anything you wish to talk to the board about. Name and address at the microphone. 2 minutes, please.
My name is Rebecca Walker. I am at 5984 Priestone Lane. As you noted, there are several parents here today as a group to show our solidarity behind our concerns regarding the kindergarten center. While we understand that it is in the study phase, our presence here today is meant to make you all understand that based on our research into the subject of a single grade curriculum, we are deeply concerned about the social, academic, and safety issues surrounding such a proposal. This proposal is not the equivalent of redistricting, but rather a drastic change in this educational structure of the Bethel Park School District. Our goal tonight is to ensure that our concerns are addressed throughout this process and that we remain fully informed of all the bases and the findings of any studies that you conduct. We ask that all of these findings and all of the information obtained throughout the study be made public, and that we are made fully aware of what is going on well in advance of any further discussions or votes on this matter. That would prevent us from having to find out about such a drastic change, such a drastic proposal via the rumor mill and YouTube videos. I think at this point that is all the concerns that we have.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else, or she spoke for the whole group? Well, it's good, great. Thank you for doing that for us.
Mrs.
Ben?
Cook, how many people were in that group? Can we see a show of hands? Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're ready for board comments then, and I'm down at Mrs. Dobus's end to begin with this time. I kept notes this time. Last time I couldn't remember.
I would just like to invite all of you to the curriculum committee meetings. They are public meetings, and it's where we find out the information also. So if you'd like to come to those meetings, they're advertised, and they're known usually 2 months in advance. So please come to the curriculum committee meetings, and it's a more informal night where there's a little bit of questioning and answering. So I just thought that you'd like to know
I
that.
wouldn't necessarily say they're too
It's
far
not-
in advance. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes we do call them within a month.
A month? Okay,
yeah.
thanks.
Mr. Means.
It's always good to see the accomplishments of the students. I'd like to call special attention to the success of our teams. A number of them made it into the playoffs. As Clint Hurdle was talking this year, he said baseball's a game made to break your heart, stretch your heart, and it's always sad whenever you lose the last game in the playoffs, but only one team goes all the way, and I'd like to congratulate them. They did a very good job. I also saw the play, and it always amazes me how much poise some of the students have. They're able to come out and command the audience and the stage, and that's always very good to see and very uplifting to be able to see that type of presence in some of our students. And the other comment is, can I get a ride in that Chariot scrubber whenever we buy it? That's it.
Thank you. Mrs. Buckley.
Thank you, Mrs. Cook. I'd like to thank all the people in the PTO and PTAs and all that they do for our students. It's very much appreciated. I'd like to comment on the fact that Bill Ryan is retiring in January, and that'll be a true loss to the district. He's a good man. I'd like to thank all of the folks who are here this evening. I strongly encourage you to continue to come back to the meetings. Don't wait to watch it on television. Please come in and spend time with us. It is appreciated. Also, at the top of my to-do list, I wasn't going to announce this, but I will. At the top of my to-do list for tomorrow is to get in touch with Ms. O'Rourke and Dr. Stark and get a date and see if we can pick that date. I understand January was the month that had been mentioned at the PTA council meeting. I'm sorry I couldn't attend. My daughter had a baby and it just didn't work.
I knew she was going to work that
I
night.
did too. I knew we were going to do pictures after the meeting. Anyway, I just couldn't fit it in. So anyway, we will get that date and get it out to you folks. But please continue to come to the meetings. We appreciate your input. And also, Mrs. Cook and I were able to spend a little time. They mentioned on the monitor tonight about the educational conference that was held for the first time at the high school, and it was time well spent. I brought some information back to the board that I'm going to pass out to you when we get to the back. We have another meeting yet tonight. And lastly, and I have a tissue just in case I cry, I want to thank Mr. Schubel from the very bottom of my heart for being a man that truly cares about every community member, every child in this district, every mother, father, and child. You are a very fine man, and we will miss you greatly. It's been a good ride with Mr. Schubel. We've done a lot of things, had some serious moments, had some chuckles, and I look forward to a trip.
Thank you, Mrs. Buck.
A trip? A trip?
A trip. That's all I'll say.
Thank you. Mr. Spacuzza.
Thanks, Grammy, I appreciate that. I'd like to reiterate some of the things that have been said previously. It fills my heart to see all the people sitting in the chairs, and we didn't really do anything wrong at this point, so that's really good.
Suggesting that.
Not yet, not yet. But I just want to ease your minds that, you know, we saw this probably about a day before you did, and we're way, I don't even know the number of minutes, months, years, or where we are in the process, so please understand that we like to be as open as we can be, and it's always better when there's people here to actually listen to our discussions and add to what we have to say and put your input into it. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we sat here with Ann and you know, 4 or 5 other people in the room, and that's very frustrating because this is a very big community. It's a very wonderful community. So please, don't make this your last meeting. I really would love to see these faces again. I think it's so important for the community itself that we participate. And thank you for coming, and I appreciate that. It's hard to, you know, I feel sorry for Dave at this point because by the time he gets on that end, he's already done. There's nothing else to say.
You can just say me too. That's.
I guess I probably won't cry, Chuck. I can say that, but I really appreciate what you've added to the meetings and what you've taught me as a board member. It's and you weren't even smart enough to do it once; you did it twice. So I'm, you know, and 3 times. You need to spend more time reading. To tell you that.
Get a life.
That's an inside joke, but he gets it.
Yep.
Thank you again for everything you've done for us and the district and the people of Bethel Park, and continued success to you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Rule.
Well, it has been an exciting night, and I hate to see Chuck leave because Chuck's been my cohort here for the vocational trades. We were the two that always have been advocates for a long, long time to push the vocational trades. So wish you well, but I'll still be in touch.
Thank you.
You know that. I always have kind of the serious part here. One, because of all the reports that I have. One is that the Allegheny Intermediate Unit, which services 42 schools, will have a 3/4 turnover this year for the first time in years. And it's going to make a major change, but sometimes change is good, you know, but we've had a lot of good people serve on the board. The other thing is that Still Center is having about 50% changeover on their board also. And again, I will hate to see some of those go because Still Center has made such a great improvement. It's just a school that has finally come into its own being. It now has many of its own organizations. It makes the students begin to feel like they're a part of the school. And we had a student that was part of the leadership team that attended one of their big conferences, and she won the Gold Leadership Award out of 11 districts. And she just stood up there and cried. She said, I thought I'd never, ever get to represent, you know, a school in this capacity. So it's just great to see how some of those kids just really achieve things that are like non-traditional, and that's a good thing. I will be attending a national conference for them to see what some of the other schools are doing, because the vocational schools are coming into all their own. They're going to be career-driven schools, and it's going to be a major change because today the workforce is more career-driven, and it doesn't always require college education, but it requires advanced skills, and that's the direction of the workforce. So I'm real excited about that, and I'm so excited about STEAM because I've been on this board so long, and I'm so glad to see where education finally is going. That's where I'd like to see it heading. And also to let you know, the JA, Junior Achievement's coming back to Bethel. And so that's an exciting part. They'll be working with our business partners. And the last thing is I have to give a plug to a couple of the clubs here. We're going to have Mr. Gianzani, who's going to fill his lobby with Christmas trees again, holiday trees, and all the clubs will be decorating them. And there'll be about 20 trees this year. So they pick all the different themes and they decorate them, and then they'll be selling them off for the holidays. So come and see them all lit up. They'll be here right after Thanksgiving. And the other thing is that Jill Simpson's class will be selling kerchiefs, sparkly kerchiefs for your pets. So for $5, they'll fit any size, small to large. They're sparkly, and it's going to be their project for this holiday.
So we're going to be sparkly this holiday. Mr. Schubel, the last time I get to call on you for a while, huh?
Last time. Thank you, Mrs. Wood. Yeah, I'd like to thank all our participants tonight. Everybody came out and weighed in on the subject of William Penn. Thank you very much. It's good to see you involved. Please stay engaged and involved. It's very nice to see that. It really is. Also, I just want to thank Mrs. Buckley and Mrs. Rose for my, we had a little goodbye party prior to the meeting with a Hawaiian theme. It was very nice, and I want to thank them for it. And it was wonderful. Thank you. Just moving forward with the district, I just want everybody to know that the district's in great hands. We have a great administrative team. We have great leadership. We have a terrific board, and I just can't say enough good things about what I know about this board and the direction of this district. And I'm going to be sad to not be a part of it moving forward. It's been an honor to serve. It's been a heck of a ride. It really has. I would encourage others to get involved, to step up and run for the board. I see young faces here. This is what we need. We need more engagement at this level. Honestly, it's one of the most frustrating but rewarding experiences I've had. In so many ways in life, you know, some of the best things you do, you don't get paid for it. I mean, it's an enriching experience. And I think over the last 10 years, I think this board's accomplished a lot. This administration's accomplished a lot. I'm just glad to be part of it. And having said that, aloha.
Mr. Christensen, can you follow that up now?
I really can. It's been a pretty talkative board all the way down here. So, but I just want to make a couple more comments on the STEAM presentation. I thought it was actually fantastic. I know Dr. Gianzani, you kind of presented the investment plan a couple of meetings ago. We had a lot of questions. I think they, you know, the staff came in and knocked it out of the park in terms of making all of the examples, how they had implemented technology, very concrete, very real. So maybe you could pass on, I know they had to take off from probably, because they have to teach early tomorrow morning, okay, but maybe you could pass on some additional thanks that they really made it concrete, really visual, you know, kind of brought the whole board into the experience. I think it also shows a lot of great creativity that's happening between the teachers, between the different divisions. I think that, you know, whether it's in education or in, you know, in industry, when you have separate groups, you tend to build silos, and it becomes hard for people to work across those silos. Here, it's very clear that through this STEAM initiative, they're really working across different disciplines, and that's really, really encouraging to see. It kind of makes me envious that I became an engineer 25 years ago, and I couldn't do it now because it's, you know, there's a lot of great opportunities that students have. So that's it. Thank you. And thank you, Chuck, for the short time I've been here, but I've learned a lot also.
Thank you. Mr. Amidits.
And yes, it is a little difficult to go last. I'm really not going last on it, goes last, but I said my comments to the teachers because I felt that they were leaving, gonna be leaving and not going to be here, but their presentation warranted enough just for me to give them another round of thanks. And to thank the administration because, again, it opened up my eyes even a little bit more on what was going on. For all the parents that are here tonight regarding the kindergarten, I'm gonna just talk and say what some of the other board members say. It's great to see you here. We don't often see that. We usually see a crowd when something is going on, and it's usually too late. And because we've already had 10 or 12 meetings on a certain subject, and so everybody comes out and says, well, you need to change it. Where was I? Well, you weren't here because you didn't pay attention. And this is the time to get in. Get in on the ground floor, come to the meetings, continue to come to the meetings. Let us know what you're thinking and feeling, because if you share the ideas when they're all involved, you're going to get the most successful results. And that's what we believe as a board. We listen to the community, we listen to our administrators, we listen to the professional staff, and that's how we come up with our ultimate decision, whether it's going to be 6 months, a year, or 2 years. So the one thing I also want to bear in mind is, in both the presentation tonight and dealing with the kindergarten, we need to keep in mind the students, because the students are what's going to be hurt or benefit the most from whatever decision we make. And so that's at the bottom line in all of our decisions that we make. Lastly, just one more thing, and I'll keep it simple. Thank you for everything on both a professional and personal level. And that's it.
And I'll just sum up by saying thank you all for helping make this the best community to live in. You do that each and every day. Thank you. I need a motion to adjourn, but remember we have executive session following. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Good night, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving, by the way.